Hi guys, welcome back aboard good old Athena. We've been here in Trinidad for hurricane season plus a little bit extra, but now it's finally time for us to start heading north. We have a roughly 240 nautical mile passage planned. That'll take us from Trinidad all the way up to Martinique, where we'll hopefully be able to pick up a little something that should improve our cruising lifestyle significantly. Something we're both very excited about. If you're new here, we're Ava and Mess. I spent 7 years on a somewhat extensive refit of our 1987 Trident Warrior sailboat named Athena. It was an oh glorious sanding extravaganza. We left Denmark and started cruising full-time, sailing down Europe's west coast, and then we had our biggest adventure yet, crossing the Atlantic. Now we're sanding and sailing our way around the world. We're all the way down in Trinidad here, and we want to head north past Grenada, past St. Vincent, up past St. Lucia, all the way to Martinique. It looks to be around 240 nautical miles, but let's take a quick peek at the weather to see what we might be in for. This is the weather as of right now. Now, if we step out through the day here, we can see we're going to have a very slow start, looks like. Then the wind should start filling in a little bit down here, so we should be able to sail through that easily. And then as we get into the nighttime, we should get closer to Grenada here, where we might get in behind the island for the wind shadow there, so that might interfere with sailing a little bit. But then tomorrow, this up here starts losing a lot of wind. And then if we look at, yeah, you can see there, if we look at the night between Tuesday and Wednesday, I think this is definitely going to be too light for us to sail in. But yeah, we'll see what happens. And last but not least, if we take a peek at the sea state forecast, as of right now, we should be looking at 5-foot waves with a period or an interval of 7 seconds. And that is pretty much what we're going to see throughout the entire passage to Martinique. Of course, behind the islands, we might get a little bit of shelter, but yeah, 5 feet at 6 or 7 seconds, that should be okay. There are various rules for what makes for a comfortable sea state. Some people say multiply the wave height by 1.33333, and then that should give you a number that's less than the interval for a comfortable passage. Other people say to multiply by 2.5, something really high like that, which means you'd basically never have a comfortable sea state. But I don't think 5 feet at 6 or 7 seconds is going to be too bad for us. It should be fairly comfortable. Ava and I are going to head to Customs and Immigration to clear out of Trinidad. I don't think they're too keen on you bringing a camera in there, so yeah, we'll leave you guys here and then we'll get underway. After a delightful 45-minute exercise in bureaucracy, we were finally able to slip our lines with the help of some of our new friends. This is Steve and Ann, and also Jim and Pat here behind us in the dinghy. Our first stop was at the fuel dock to take advantage of the relatively cheap and good quality fuel in Trinidad. From what we've heard, cruisers used to be able to get the same subsidized price on fuel that locals get, but sadly that is not true anymore. We took on 284 liters of diesel and paid the rough equivalent of $360 US. With that, both of our internal tanks are fully topped off, as well as our 5 20-liter jerry cans up on deck. We fired up old Trusty Rusty and slipped the lines in Trinidad for one last time. Trinidad has been a great experience for us, and I have a strong feeling we'll be back someday.
Right now we're passing by Scotland Bay, and what a lot of cruisers do when they're heading to Grenada, because it's about 80 miles away from here, they'll come to Scotland Bay during the day and then they'll leave around like 3 or 4 in the morning, so they'll get in before the sun goes down the following day before it's dark, and they have to weave through that busy mooring field in the dark.
Heading almost straight north, we were motoring in a slight bit of headwind as expected. Motoring is nobody's favorite, but it is a useful option to have instead of attempting to tack our way out of the narrow channel. And it can also get us clear of whatever weird winds that are formed by the islands. So far, everything was on track, but in the middle of the night, things took a sharp turn. Literally. Well, that didn't quite go according to plan. My super comfortable weather window turned out to be a little bit of false advertising, and yeah, we just spent a night in probably the most confused and lumpy seas I've ever been in.
Yesterday when we left, everybody was like, oh, enjoy your champagne sail. It's going to be so wonderful. And it definitely was not that. I think the last time I felt like seas that were remotely similar, like as rough, was crossing the English Channel. But yeah, that was quite the ride last night.
And today is actually my birthday, so thank you to Mother Nature for that sporty birthday present, and thank you to the weather forecast for being semi-accurate. It wasn't actually the wind that was kind of the biggest issue. We did see higher gusts than the forecast had promised. I think the forecast was talking about 22, and we saw a couple just above 30. But the big factor in making this uncomfortable was the sea state. And it wasn't even that it was that high, it was just very confused and coming from all sorts of directions. That was not so fun. So to give me a little bit of a chance to celebrate my birthday, we have decided to divert to Bequia, yes. Just so we can drop the hook there, get a night's sleep, maybe actually get some birthday dinner, stuff like that. So yeah, we have 37 or 34 miles to go to Bequia. Bequia. Ah.
Last time we went to Bequia, we kept calling it Bequia, and every comment on that video was,
oh, it was just like the Tobago Keys.
Yep.
Case.
That's not how you pronounce it. So,
yeah.
Bequia.
Whoopsies.
Birthday in Bequia.
We spent a lovely night here at Petite Nevis, where this was actually one of our stops last season in the Caribbean. But yeah, really nice little anchorage. We got in, I think, at 5, and we were in bed by 8. And now it's 5:15 in the morning, and we're getting ready to get underway for our next little jump in this adventure, which I think will take us to St. Lucia. Thank you, Ava. I don't know how much you can see on the screen here, but the next leg is 53 miles, and unfortunately there is not supposed to be much wind today. But as we were recently reminded, the weather forecast is but a mere suggestion, so let's get underway and see what happens. Heading north, we were treated to this floating monstrosity. You might think that I have too many electronics aboard Athena, but at least I don't have a giant TV strapped to the deck. Yet. We did, however, have this little guy strapped to our pulpit. Unfortunately, his free ride was relatively short. I wish he could have stayed longer, but as soon as we were clear of the island, we unfurled our sails. We are well underway. We've got the sails up and gone off, but we only have, I think it's 9 to 10 knots of wind, so it's going to be a bit of a slow process today. We have about 45 miles to go, but on the plus side of things, this is actually the furthest north we've ever been in the Caribbean, because last year when we crossed the Atlantic, we made landfall in Barbados and then scurried right over to St. Vincent. And we've just passed St. Vincent, so this is the furthest north we've ever been in the Caribbean. We have about 45 miles to go. Unfortunately, up here by St. Vincent, we're going to take a bit of a starboard turn, which I think will be too close to the wind then to sail, but we'll see. While we're slogging along here, let me tell you a fun story from our overnight passage from Trinidad. Because our autopilot, or the compass part of our autopilot, was a bit out of calibration, and that seemed to be getting progressively worse throughout the night. The dotted line here is our path, and as you can see, it goes all squiggly there. That's because of the autopilot. To be able to recalibrate the autopilot, at least to my knowledge, we need pretty flat water and almost no wind. So later in the night, I tried going straight towards Grenada here to get a bit calmer wind and sea state. So we'd made it, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles towards Grenada at that point, when I realized that maybe I should just check the configuration of the autopilot. If we go into options here, options, and then autopilot setup, and then we have preferred source. As you can see right now, it's set to MSC 10. That is our satellite compass, which is this funny looking white thing that sits right above our radar. And because that's based off of satellites, it never really needs to be recalibrated. The other option in here is the React 40 autopilot, which that is one of those magnetic sensor doohickeys. I don't know if this is true for other boats or if it's just Athena that's a bit weird, or maybe it's because we've covered a lot of distance the last 2 years. But that magnetic sensor seems to want to be recalibrated every 6 months or so. So to solve our little autopilot issue in the middle of the night, all I had to do was just to select our MSC 10 and everything was smooth sailing.
We keep forgetting, even though everybody keeps reminding us, the new country ritual.
Oh, that's right.
Does that count?
No, we've been here before.
Okay. Oh yeah, so it's not new.
No.
No.
Tonight will be new.
Okay. So tonight you will get a new country ritual.
We were able to sail most of the day, but had to reef in between the islands as it got a little bit gusty. Late in the afternoon, we were finally getting close to St. Lucia, and quite possibly the most impressive anchorage we have ever stayed in. Now that we're finally in a pristine anchorage with incredibly inviting blue water, of course we had to jump in. I'm happy to report that there's no sign of growth on the hull after 3 weeks in the water, and the Prop 1 anti-fouling on the prop seems to be holding up well so far. One giant upside to going for a swim is the chance to check the mooring ball. These are maintained by SMMA, which is the local Marine Management Association. With the shifting winds coming off of the mountain, the mooring ball does every once in a while drag along the side of the hull. That makes a bit of noise inside of the boat, but it's not a huge problem. The mooring seems to be in decent shape, at a distance at least, and was able to hold Athena's 12 tons without any incidents. Swimming towards the shore, we saw that the underwater landscape is mainly made up of boulders. There's not a huge amount of color, but there is some diversity, and even one of the rare Ava fish. If diving in cold waters had told me anything, it's to appreciate the beauty in the small things. If we were going to stay here longer, I would definitely have busted out our scuba gear to get some better shots with our new underwater camera instead of just using the GoPro. But sadly, we have places to be. But before we do anything else, let's get this out of the way. New country ritual! Mwah! Now that we've had a chance to spend a bit of time here, I can definitely say this is probably the most beautiful anchorage we have ever been in, especially with those two giant mountains at the entrance into the anchorage. From looking at the terrain overlay on Google Maps, it looked like that one is a little over 600 meters tall. I don't believe anchoring is allowed in this bay or the one next to it, but there are the mooring balls here, the ones maintained by the SMMA. And I think for a night here, I think we paid 54 EC, which is the rough equivalent of $20 US, which is not exactly cheap for a mooring ball, but I mean, considering the view and the super awesome water, I think it's a pretty sweet deal. But as with so many other things in life, this rose has thorns too, because we were looking on the Caribbean cruising safety net or whatever it's called. I'll leave a link down in the description. And I think it was about 2 weeks ago, there was an incident here with somebody trying to board a boat in the middle of the night, presumably to try and steal something. And those incidents seem to happen every few months. And on Noonside, they recommend not leaving the boat alone, like leaving somebody aboard the boat to deter anybody from coming aboard to try and steal stuff. That is a giant shame, because this is a super beautiful place and I would happily camp out here for a few weeks and hike all over this place. I think that would be amazing. But yeah, safety might be a bit of a concern. To what extent you let recommendations like the one from Noonside or the reports from the safety net influence your choices as a cruiser is of course a completely personal decision. But it is such a shame that that has to or can be a concern. And I will say the 2 boat boys we've met here and the park rangers that come to collect the mooring fees, all of those guys have been super nice. We haven't had a single issue so far, but yeah. The plan was to end this week's video in Martinique, and we are gonna go there tomorrow. It's only, I think, a 38-mile jump to get there. And also it was the plan for this video to go out and buy a 15-horse 2-stroke outboard from Yamaha, which we were super excited about. But a small spanner has been thrown into the works there, because apparently they can't sell us a 2-stroke outboard because we're a European flagged vessel. We might be able to get a little bit creative and buy a used 2-stroke off of a fellow cruiser somewhere there, but yeah, it's a bit of an unknown for now. So we'll have to see what happens on that front next week. So yeah, please cross your fingers for our Yamaha adventure next week. Hopefully it'll work out.
Yep.
And on that hopeful note, we'll end this week's video here. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video,
Please remember to leave a like.
see you right in front of your face.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And who you're here, there's nothing
And this is what it's like to work with your wife.
Delight.
Delight.
Pleasure.
Okay, are you ready?
And you're here.
Not quite ready. She'll get there.
Ready.
Okay.
It's so bright.
It is very bright. Well, I'm in the shade up here, so that's kind of nice. How are you doing down there?
I'm just being blinded.
Well, we can go